Hi, everyone. Affirmations can be such a powerful tool to rewire and reset negative ideas, emotions, stories that we tell about ourselves that just are kind of in these weird loops in our mind. Oftentimes, as creatives, we are dealing with particular stories, themes, ways that we've been in the world, that we think our creativity is, that we think our creativity is going to be received in the world. And most of the time, that is not accurate, that is not true, that is not helpful, and that is not kind. So, the one thing that we really do have control over in terms of our practice is to be aware of our self-talk, is to be aware of the thoughts that we think, and to interrupt those that are not in keeping with our greatest creative ambitions and sense of who we really are. So welcome. My name is Michelle Tracy Berger. If you're new, this is my weekly Affirmations for Creatives video where I share an original affirmation and invite you to explore what it might mean to you and how it might be helpful to you, might serve you in your own creative practice. And I like to read the affirmation 3 times and then I say a few words about it. And I'm so happy that you're here. This week's affirmation is I dare to own my creativity and follow where it leads. I dare to own my creativity and follow where it leads. I dare to own my creativity and follow where it leads. Woo, that's a powerful one. And I know in my own life as a creative writer, there have been times that I've had to really double down and trust my ideas and trust that they were going to be well received at some point. And sometimes that's really scary. I think one of the other affirmations I in one of the earlier weeks is one about courage. And I think this one is a nice complement to that one, right? Because it says, I dare to own my creativity. So, number one, the fact that you're doing that is really, really important and often the thing that stops most people. Just owning and claiming that you are a creative being, you have a right to your creativity, you have permission to create, and you give yourself that permission, right? That no one else really can bestow that on you, but that you own that. You give yourself permission. And then also that you trust your creativity enough to follow where it leads. And sometimes it's going to lead to places that you expect, and sometimes it won't. It will lead to completely new places, and that will be perhaps daunting, scary, not what you expected, but it's so worth it to trust your creativity and to let it take its lead. And I mean that in many senses of the word, trusting that even though what you're writing or um, maybe you're filming something, maybe you are doing a different kind of creative work, that trust that even if you don't see examples of exactly what you're doing out in the world, that's okay. That's because you are to place your work out there and be engaged in contributing something new. I think sometimes what stops a lot of people from finishing their creative work and then sharing it and trying to sell their creative work if that's of interest to them is that they feel like they don't fit into any easy model, right? I mean, we all have influences for sure, but sometimes we're doing work that the subject matter is just very different than what's out there. And so we have to believe that our work is really valuable and that it's going to be wanted. And I think this is so important to trust it, right? And I have a lot of examples. I've talked about different examples on this channel. I can say for sure one of them was I wrote a short story called Doll Seed, and I wanted to explore the inner life of a black doll. And I really wanted to explore the 1954 Brown versus Board Supreme Court decision, which was the decision that dismantled legal segregation. And it was based on, part of the argument was based on these, what was called the doll tests. And they took dolls to psychiatrists, Kenneth Clark and Mamie Clark, well-known psychiatrists. They did, excuse me, psychologists. They did these studies where they asked black and white children, boys and girls, to look at a black and white doll and rate which one was cleaner, which one was prettier, which one would they rather want to play with. And overwhelmingly, both the black kids and the white kids chose the white doll. And so this case was made that segregation is harmful to black people, it's harmful to the nation. And there's a lot of things that I was just fascinated by that time period, and the fact that this major case was decided on psychological research. So, to make a long story short, I had this idea. I wanted to find out what happened to the dolls after that experiment, right? What happened to the dolls after the 1954 Supreme Court decision? And so I created this story that followed this uh, inspirited doll that came into doll form in a toy store in a brown body, and we follow her journey from the 1950s all the way through the 1970s. And in that, it's sort of a alternate history, contemporary fantasy because it shows the world of the toys and dolls, but it also shows her interacting with humans. And I'd like to say it's civil rights with magical realism and dolls. And so I wrote the story and I revised the story, vetted the story, and for years, years and years and years, I would send it out and it wouldn't move forward. Sometimes I get a personalized rejection, which was great. And, this was to speculative fiction journals, literary journals, and I kept revising it. And I feel like the writing was really strong. And I was just, I believe, really ahead of the curve for that particular story because then in 2018, 2019, excuse me, the story landed at Faya magazine, the magazine of Black speculative fiction. They took it with almost no revision, very minor revisions. They loved the story. And then that story went on to win an award, the Carl Brandon Butler Award, and for best work on a speculative fiction story around race and ethnicity. And it's not that I even felt vindicated. I just was so happy that the story had been enjoyed and it was acknowledged that it was a strong story. And so sometimes we can be ahead because the gatekeepers have, in terms of gatekeepers in variety of areas, have been changing in terms of what is accepted now. And so I just think my story found editors who really understood the history that went into it, the speculative nature, the world building, and that it resonated. So this is why this example that I'm sharing, and also I should say the story became um, the sort of anchor for my short story collection, which is called Doll Seed and named after the title story. And it was sort of an anchor because it's about the short story collection is about many things: outsiderness, trust, friendship, mother-daughter relationships, female friendships, female relationships, outsiderness, anti-blackness, and it was such a great anchor for the other 14 stories or 15 stories in the collection. And um, and you can find that with Aunt Lute Books. And if you are interested in speculative fiction, want to check that out. Uh, anyway, it just served. I had to trust so much in that story, and I had to trust in the revisions, and I had to trust that the story was really going to be meaningful and important. And sometimes we do have to hold on to that, even when the outside world is not mirroring that back to us. Does that make sense? I hope this is resonating with folks. So let me know how this affirmation, I dare to own my creativity and follow where it leads, how that lands for you, how you might use it this week, stories that you have about where you've been very courageous in following where your creativity has led you. I'd love to hear those. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe, even better. And if you know someone who struggles or could just use a boost in reminding themselves that we have tools to support our creative growth, and one of them are affirmations and using affirmations, please share this video or let them know this channel exists. I love building this community. I love serving this community. And stay inspired, and I will see you next time, next week. Thanks so much.